Hi, I'm Jamie, and I am the creator of One World, Your Story, where we bring people together. And right now, we need this more than ever. The murder of George Floyd, the latest of countless Black Americans to be murdered at the hands of police in America, has set off a chain reaction across the United States. People are angry, people are hurt, and rightfully so. We cannot stand by and allow this to continue any longer. It's time to use our voices and bring this conversation out into the open for good. So, join us for this episode of The Floyd Files.
And it's hard, and it's really hard because people could stop being friends with you. People could be like, fuck off, and just, you could say everything that's perfectly right, but one thing you disagree on, people will just throw away everything that you ever stood for, you know? And it's really hard to disagree with your family, and it's really hard to let your friends down, but at the end of the day, just come from a place of love and honesty, and that's like the perfect way to get through it.
Well, Harry, before we get started, so anyone that's joining us, my name is Jamie. I'm sure you all are familiar with me at this point, but if you are not, I am the creator of One World, Your Story podcast, and here live now with Kay, or the Rainbow Prince. We'll let you give yourself a proper introduction, and my partner Harry, who is behind the scenes on all these podcasts. So before I start, while I'm still sending stuff off on the back end, Harry, since you're on here, are there any questions that you might want to ask Kay live or anything like that, just to get us started? I know you two are the ones that found each other originally. So
well, let me just tell the story, I guess. I think that'll set the scene a little bit.
Sure.
I was just browsing Instagram like you do, and I was following this really funny page. It's called DMT World. It's all about psychedelics and memes about that. And I saw this.
Why were you following that page, Harry?
Just for personal research, medical research, really. So I saw this amazing picture of the Rainbow Prince with this sign that said "Cops need LSD." Huge picture in the middle of a Black Lives Matter protest, and I was just like, "Wow, that is so cool." Click through. I saw your speech there at the protest in Nottingham. Is that right?
Yeah.
That was super cool. And then this photo started popping up. It popped up on a bunch of other pages, including, I mentioned in the bio, but Alex Gray, who's like the legendary psychedelic artist behind all Tools art and album covers. So that sign is going around. So do you want to talk about like what inspired that, and like how has it been to get this kind of attention?
It's definitely been amazing, first off, you know, and not only to get my my art out there, but just to actually have a picture of the person behind it as well. You know, I've done graffiti like most of my life, and usually when you do the graffiti, you sort of like, if you have a lot of graffiti, you talk like you don't have an ego, but you sort of do. But most of the face of the graffiti is just the art. You know what I mean? So it was cool that people actually know who I am and see my page and actually see like the lifestyle I live. You know, but the feedback has been amazing. I love it. Alex Gray, he's been like the god for me since I was like first starting to do art, you know, so get recognized by that. Not only by that, but like to get the message out into the world about cops needing LSD. And a lot of people messaged me, a lot of people hit me up, and a lot of people had questions about it. And what I realized is people wanted to be this super deep, like super like thoughtful idea that I put onto a sign, and it's not even that deep at all. You know, it's just cops really just need LSD. You know, and I use it as like an umbrella term of people needing some sort of inward consciousness. Whether it could be it could be therapy. That could be like the LSD. Cops need therapy. Cops need weed. Cops need a vacation. You know what I mean? Cops need to talk to somebody. You know, I just used LSD as like an umbrella term for a way to
go inward.
Yeah, exactly. And think about what they're doing, and think about the consciousness. Think of the gang they're a part of, you know, and it's really hard too for some people to see that, because they're like, and I understand also as well, because psychedelics isn't for everybody. Psychedelic can cause can trigger schizophrenia, cause psychosis, and these things. But I also feel like even though I don't like all cops, I don't believe there's a good cop. I feel like there's good people. You know what I mean? And I know there's good
Mm.
people that I joined that gang, and they have to do the work. Like I said, there's no such thing as a good cop, because if a good Nazi wanted to join the Nazis, he had to do Nazi work. You know? But
I feel like I've seen you write that recently.
yeah, I said that in my speech, and I live by that. But I also feel like the cops need LSD thing is pretty much just something that it's sort of like clickbait. You know what I mean? You see it, and then
Totally.
after, yeah, you see it, and you're like, oh shit, like why do they need LSD? And then maybe you'll start looking into LSD. You know, in the '60s, I think during the Vietnam War, the British got was given LSD while they're in the war, and they ended up laughing. They ended up just climbing trees. They ended up questioning themselves, why are they fighting a war? And Americans as well. So even just that, even just in a war, you give them in a situation where they're in the field and they're taking this and they're questioning everything. So if you can give that to someone during a war, maybe you can give it to somebody who ends up going home or has to leave and can't handle the pressure and has to go take some time to himself. Maybe that could change his life.
I mean, if they were giving it during that war, think about the time that we're going through now, needing some
Yeah.
sort of introspection or radical thinking. So, okay, already there's so much juicy stuff to dig into.
So much to dig into. Okay, I'm gonna sign off. Rainbow Prince, I've seen that video of the British soldiers on LSD. I'm gonna make sure we share that along the side of this because that is
Okay.
so funny, so classic. I'm really looking forward to you guys' chat. So thanks for being
Cool.
here
Thank you.
and
Nice meeting you.
signing off. I'll be watching live here.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye.
Harry.
Peace.
Okay, Kay. So before Harry jumped on and we were chatting, and how we typically start these is let's do an introduction because I mean, you're in the UK right now, across the
Yeah.
pond, as they would say. I really butchered that accent up bad. God. But you're originally from California, right?
Yeah. So
Where, yeah, tell us a little bit
yeah,
about you and where you're from.
yeah, so my parents are from Eritrea in East Africa, and they were both grew up in the war, fought in the war, and eventually they made it into America. They escaped the war to Sudan, made Saudi Arabia. From there, my mom worked for a while, and my dad was in the States, and he was a journalist. My father's also in jail for 8 years for journalism, like political journalism, and they killed his cousin, and he was in jail. So both my parents just grew up in the war and like rebelling, you know what I mean? And as an Eritrean, everyone just grew up in the war and grew up fighting. People are still fighting right now. So this is just like pretty much just in my blood, you know? So after
Okay.
they
I really hope, by the way, that there's this guy, Sam, that is watching you live
uh,
because Sam I spoke to last week. He's from Eritrea.
oh
And I spoke with
nice.
his son also. And we had dinner last night. And I was telling him about you, but not that you were from Eritrea because I didn't know. So,
Oh sick.
so I love that. So I've ironically been learning a lot about it. And yeah, I know the war and the struggle. I mean, of
Yeah,
course,
it's
still,
rough.
nope.
They call it Eritrea the South Korea or the North Korea of Africa.
Damn, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Have you
It's
been?
really bad. Yeah, I've been 3 times. I went once in '96, another time in 2003, and the recent time 2015. So I went when I was a kid, teenager, and adult. So it was like I've seen it from different angles each time. You know,
And you said both your parents are from there. Did I get
both of
that
my
right?
parents. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so you kind of like, I mean, I actually, I'm not going to assume anything. I mean, what was it like growing up with parents that were, could we call, would you call your mom an activist as well as your dad?
Yeah, definitely. Especially my father because he got put to jail for what he was doing.
Yeah.
So,
Tell me a little bit more about that. You were a journalist, political journalist.
mhm.
Is this something that you can talk about
Yeah,
publicly?
yeah. Well, it's there's not really I can talk more about my father because so when both my parents came to America, I was born in Boston in the East Coast, and about a year later moved to Oakland, and about 2 years later, my father actually got shot and murdered. So I really don't know much about my father, I know like about a little bit about his history, but I don't have information like as where I can ask him or anything like that because
You
my
said that in
family,
your speech too. Okay,
yeah,
I
my
remember. I'm
family's back
sorry, I
home.
forgot.
Yeah, so but I was born in Boston, came to Oakland, and then moved to this town called Alameda, small beach town by the water, and it's I love it more than anywhere. Like I love where I'm from. I love it so much. But yeah, that's where I'm from. I'm from Alameda, small beach town in the Bay Area, um, pretty much San Francisco Bay Area, and that
Okay.
ties in a lot to with my lifestyle. You know, like that's where the hippie movement began. That's where the Black Panthers began. So yeah, that's a big part of me.
Okay. Well, you just mentioned two things because I mean, there's a lot of directions you could have gone in San Francisco shaping you. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot of different pockets of culture and things that people can get into. If there was ever a place to find, I feel like, oh, I want to explore this, you could probably find it in San Francisco. It could be
Yeah,
anything.
totally.
So for you, it was specifically Black Panther movement and this hippie movement that you're talking about.
Yeah.
What about them and which shaped you more? Is there one that has shaped you more? Are they kind of the
Well,
simultaneous
yeah, well,
impacts on your
I
life?
feel like I grew up in one of the biggest housing projects in California, and it was just a lot of poverty there. You know what I mean? And it was predominantly black colored people, pretty much. There was a lot of white people in the town I grew up in, but that apartment, those projects, was pretty much people of color. And there, you never really when it came to like psychedelics and the hippie culture and things like that, of course we were like really introduced to it because that was the whole culture out there. But when it came to the Black Panthers, that's something that we're just automatically brought into because it was just us as black people rebelling and having to like stay protected and to have each other's backs and have to learn what we had to go through back in the day. You know what I mean? And even in school, when they taught us, when certain people taught us about the Black Panthers, they taught us that you still need to use these tactics that they use because this is still happening. You know what I mean? So it was always taught that you had to have like your friends back, you had to have your brothers back, you had to have your sisters back. And that whole place, the Bay Area, is completely different. It made me think of white people here in Europe completely different. Like I don't really like the term woke, but white people in California or in the Bay Area are so fucking can I cuss?
You can say whatever you want as long
Uh,
as you're respectful. So yeah, you can
yeah.
cuss.
Yes, people are so fucking woke in the white people in California in the Bay Area, and here I don't feel like they really are. They haven't been really educated on that, you know. So
I
yeah,
actually,
that's
I might know a little bit, but I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that don't know. And it's interesting that you're bringing this up because yesterday I spoke with a guy who is a Nigerian, lives there. We were talking about race and racism from his
mhm.
perspective, and really like really getting hit hard with like this is racism is not an American issue. It
Yeah,
looks really
totally.
different in America, but
Mhm.
it's happening globally and it's been happening
Everywhere.
since the history of history, right? Like he
Yeah,
was saying in Nigeria, for example, like the president of the country, there were some jobs that did open. I can't remember when, but literally was saying, oh, and by the way, it's the largest percentage of black people like in a country in the world is Nigeria. I think like
yeah,
95% black or something. The president saying, oh, if a white person applies, they're going to get first access to the job. So he was saying, well, if we don't love ourselves, how
hmm
is anybody else going? So you're talking about what things look like in the UK. I'm saying that in California, people are more woke. Well, what is the difference? What are you talking about when you say that?
Well, I feel like out there, especially I can really only speak from the San Francisco Bay Area where I'm from. People are taught. People are growing up in protesting. People are growing up with their parents coming from the hippie movement, you know, or their grandparents coming from that. I have friends, like really close friends, that their parents were a part of that movement. And when it comes to over here, I feel like people think because it's not as bad as it is in America, and they don't see cops and like KKK and things like that, that it isn't as bad here. That's just that's as simple as it can. That's what I usually see here, and the racism here is sort of different as well. People do like blackfishing is really big here. Like it's huge. Blackfishing, where people like sort of do like the extra dark tan. They do everything they can to look black, but don't want to appreciate the black culture, but they appropriate the black culture. Have you heard of black? You haven't heard blackfishing?
No, I have not heard of black fishing. I mean, I know about
Yeah,
cultural appropriation, but
yeah. I bet a lot of people who are watching, if there's a lot of people watching, they know about blackfishing, and it's something that's really been going on here in the UK, and people have been getting called out about it. Influencers getting called out about it, um, getting like their lips pumped, getting like the tan injections, pretty much doing everything to appropriate black culture, but don't want to appreciate black culture or give respect to the black culture.
damn, I mean, I've been talking about this recently with a musician. Where we were talking like, yeah, we can adopt the culture, but not the people. What the fuck is that? But it's
Hmm.
interesting. You're talking about tanning and like looking darker. Find that to be really interesting because there's a whole movement about bleaching your skin and trying to look whiter
Yeah,
and actually anti-blackness.
I had that experience when I was in Jamaica. We're going snorkeling, and I was with my friend and his family. His mom is white, or they're white. They're all white, and they're all putting sunscreen on and things like that. And then the instructor, he was saying something like, "You guys like getting tan so much," and then they were like, "Yeah, we want to get darker." And he was like, "Oh, I wish I could be your skin color." And it was my first time ever hearing that because I've watched documentaries about people in Jamaica bleaching their skin, people in West Africa doing that, but I've never heard it like or seen it firsthand, and it was pretty sad, like just seeing someone not love their color or their probably love where they're from, but not really like their color, and that happens a lot in the Caribbean as well, like other countries like Dominican Republic, like a lot of those people don't want to claim that they're black. Like they say they're no, we're not black, and they have like problem against black. Even in Africa, North Africa, Morocco, and places like that, where people are like a lot lighter, they're super racist against the dark Africans. So it's sad.
It's just like, it's really sad. It's really sad. And for a lot of reasons. And I'm like, okay. So, because the talk now in the US, there's a lot of talk, but one of the topics is complete deconstruction, right? Um, get rid of the current systems that we have and build new ones, or at least
Mhm.
defund and, okay. And in my head, I'm like, great, because I know if we were to get all the white people in this country to love black people, or for us to all like each other in general, that actually won't solve mm, why these issues keep going and going, because it's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
systems.
It's not within the people, it's within the laws. You
Right.
know what I mean?
But now you're saying all this other stuff about people like wanting to bleach their skin. So it's like, okay, well, if we do solve the systems, then all of that still really exists. And not
Hmm.
just within Americans, within people all over the world. So how do we,
Yeah,
where does it actually start? Where do
yeah.
we,
You know, well, that's what it comes.
I feel like that's where we get the LSD. Like that's where that comes into play.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna go into. It all comes down to looking inward and loving yourself. You know what I mean? And learning more about yourself. I feel like I'm an advocate for psychedelics, not because I like doing drugs and all that, because I like to talk to people and tell them that there's a tool that can help you love yourself more. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm really an advocate for it. And it's because there's so many tools out there, and it doesn't mean that you have to go take like 5 hits of acid. It doesn't mean that you have to do all these things. It means that even if you want to go, if you read something about psychedelics or LSD, and then it gives you a train of thought to think about something else, or there's something else reading in that literature that makes you want to do research about that, and that can help you out. That's why I do it. That's why I talk about it. You know what I mean? And it all comes down to looking inward and just consciousness. And a lot of people don't have that. People don't think about consciousness. People just think about what's going on in front of them, and it's scary.
Which is crazy that in a time like this, right, where basically the entire planet is screaming at us to wake the fuck up and look inward,
Mhm.
where the collective consciousness is begging for a change, people are still resisting it. I want to go back in time because, okay, you mentioned Black Panther movement and hippie movement, and what in two wildly different yet similar movements in the sense that like it is about full expression of who you are. Love me, period, at the end of the day. But there's so much talk right now about, okay, these peaceful protests and then like rioters, looters. There's a bunch of anger all associated with this. And here you are coming at me saying love, self-reflection, consciousness. What came first for you? And by the way, go ahead, whatever you were going to say.
I was going to say, like we were supposed to speak. I apologize for last week that I was repainting my art room and that didn't happen. Like I was too caught up in that. I'm sorry,
you just made out for it. You called yourself out publicly, so everyone knows why.
Yeah, sorry. This is supposed to be last week, but honestly, it was. Now looking back on it, it was the best thing that could have happened because between now and then, I had a LSD experience. Me and my girlfriend and one of my good friends went on a hike, and we all took some LSD. And while we're during our trip, we're sitting down. And I actually looked at my friend Grace and I told her, I was like, you know what? I was supposed to be on a podcast yesterday, but I'm so glad it didn't happen because right now the mindset I'm in is completely different than what I would have talked about if I had the podcast yesterday. So I feel like I would have came from a place of a lot of frustration and anger. You know what I mean? Like when I was talking about these subjects, because the past month has been crazy, like nonstop. You know what I mean? And my social media has been blowing up. Like I've been lost friends and things like that. But now, ever since the trip, now I'm like stepping away from the anger and like more level-headed, and now just talking more from a place of peace and how can we move on? You know what I mean? And
well, it goes back to what we were saying before we started. It all happens exactly as it's supposed to, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what shifted for you on the trip? And I understand the anger. I understand it from my perspective. I don't understand like your whole experience, but I understand why you'd be angry right now. Yeah, what shifted?
Well, it was a few things. One, it was the most calm I've been in a few weeks, or like pretty much a month since George Floyd got murdered. It was the first time that I wasn't on my phone all day. You know what I mean? Completely separated from that, and I just really just got a complete break from the whole world. I wasn't on social media the whole day. I was with my friends. I was in nature on a hike. The weather was good here. You know, like it was hot, and there's just a lot of things that stemmed around, and it was just like the perfect day for me to just collect myself. And that's like the best thing for psychedelics for me is just taking a step back and just like recollecting myself and resetting. So it just
I think
worked
that
out.
like it's just so easy to get, and I mean I've been to the UK a handful of times, and know that it operates in a similar way as we do here in the US, and that you're in this rat wheel. It's about work and making money and looking good, and sometimes it takes removing yourself and literally putting yourself on another level mentally to get the medicine you need to think differently. I mean,
Yeah,
we absorb how many bits of information every second, but only are consciously aware of 1% of them, 3%
yeah,
of them. So it allows us to think differently, which I think is so important right now because we cannot go on the way that we were. We have to radically
yeah.
think differently. Um, and so we need to be maybe going down different highways and paths that we haven't before in our minds. And I want to switch to really digging into cops needing LSD.
Mhm.
I'm going to switch LSD to like love. Let's say love. What could the S be?
Um, uh, I'm not sure. Let's see.
Love, self-reflection, and dancing. Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I'm gonna
perfect.
say. Cops need love, self-reflection, and
Reflection
dancing.
and dancing.
Truly.
Honestly perfect.
Okay.
That's really perfect because dancing that can eliminate a lot. That's just total freedom. That's expression. That's therapeutic.
Literally for the first, I don't know, 30 days or however many people that know me and were following me know this. Every day I was posting a video of myself dancing by myself in my apartment saying, free my body, free my soul. Because in that moment when you are dancing, nothing else exists. And it is
Yeah.
pure joy.
Mhm.
So, okay, love, self-reflection, and dancing, which to me is literally like I'm talking about mental health. And I think that
Yeah.
that's what you're talking about when you say cops need LSD.
100%.
So, okay, as a guy, just as a guy, when did you start talking about love and emotion and expression? And I feel like even for the purposes of this conversation, we can add, there's a, intersectionality is a thing. I'm going to add the layer of being a Black man. And I don't know if mental health and talking about emotions is different
Yeah,
culturally.
totally is.
But when did you start talking about this, and how was that received, and why?
Well, I told you my father, I didn't really have a father most of my life. So I was raised with my mother, and I watched my mother. I remember since I was a kid, my mother crying, wearing all black for years because of my father passed away. Like crying was always normal because I've always seen that's the way my mom dealt with it. You know what I mean? And in my country, in my culture, when people in the family die, everyone comes to your house for about a week or two, and people come bring gifts and everything, but people all come and collectively cry and get it all out. So like they don't want you
Whoa,
crying
that's
alone.
cool. Because I'm
Yeah.
Jewish,
Uh,
and we have this thing called like sitting Shiva. So someone dies, and for a week, same thing. People come,
mhm.
they cook for you, but it is not about emotion. It is purely about support. I mean, that's an interesting twist. Literally, part of it is about the
Crying. Yeah.
release of,
Yeah. I grew up going to
wow.
different when people pass. My mom brings me, and I have a twin brother. So my mom brings me and my brother to the whoever's house passed, and then the kids go do their thing, and then the the adults go and support, cook, bring food, everything, and then you guys collectively cry together. And it's crazy to see if you weren't brought up there, just seeing people cry. But I've always been taught to just like express myself. But growing up where I grew up in, and it was really like the hood, you know what I mean? And like guys, you weren't really taught to express yourself like that, and it was sort of hard. But I had a really good tight group of friends, and we were like open, and we talked about how we felt. Even if we were hiding it from everybody else, we talked about it within each other. So,
That's
and I had
so
a
nice that you had that. It makes a world of difference. Holy shit.
Yeah, it totally does. And I had a lot of women that were friends as well too, like girls that were friends, and I felt like it was a lot easier to talk with them. It was a lot easier to be around them because there wasn't no block of emotions. It wasn't a you can't feel this way, or you can't. You talk to some guys you went to school with. I went to school with. You talk to them like, yeah, I really like this girl. Like, I don't want to hang out with this girl. Or it's just like, yo, why aren't you talking to all of them? It's like, why don't you hang out with all these girls? Like, why are you feeling that way? Like, you're a bitch. And it's just like, I don't know. I've just never felt that way, even though grew up around and surrounded by that. I just always felt like, I don't know. I was always criticized for wanting to be nice. You know what I mean? Because that place doesn't want you to be nice. You know what I mean?
Isn't
And you
that an
can't be.
interesting thing to be criticized for?
Mhm.
Yeah, you said, okay, that place. I don't know what you're referring to. Maybe it's the area in which you grew up.
Yeah.
That place doesn't want you to be nice.
Hmm.
And you said on your, it was Section 8 housing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That place doesn't want you to be nice. There's a toughness, like a thick skin that you're supposed to have or something.
Hmm.
The gang that the cops are in that you were talking about, I say gang because you use that word. I also feel that way. You were definitely taught that you cannot be emotional, that to be nice is weird, looked at
Hmm.
weird.
Yeah.
I mean, so the similarities are interesting, right?
Yeah.
Thinking about it from that perspective. I mean, could it be something as simple as literally changing the narrative from the training of when you like get in these groups? Could it literally be that? Could that solve everything?
Well, like I just I feel like no matter what, when you're thrown in a situation, you have to keep that thick layer on you, and you have to show some sort of hardness and some sort of toughness so you don't break. Because like there's times where I act like that I was just hard and it was tough because I had to get through that situation, or I was gonna get jumped, or I was gonna get beat up. I was still myself, but I still learned to protect myself as well. Like it's sort of like you learn how to survive when when you grow up around that. And I'm sure you understand what I'm saying.
I do. I do. Because I think right now in today's world, yeah, you need it because there's plenty of people that have never had the LSD,
Hmm.
love, self reflection, and then they
And
don't
dancing.
know. I think
Yeah.
that What I'm saying is, if everybody got that training from the day that they were born,
that'd be amazing.
do we need to have the thick, hard skin? I don't think we do. I mean, have you ever been around? I'm kind of asking this rhetorically because I feel like I know the answer to this, but like, have you ever been around a big group of people from all different backgrounds, ages, races that have been on a psychedelic experience?
Yeah.
Is there any hate afterwards? Like,
Oh. No. And you know what's crazy about this? I talked to one of my best friends. He's 1 year older than me, but like he's just always been a lot older to me, like mentally and wiser. And we've talked about how, as rough as it was growing up, we're glad that we grew up that way. We're glad that, not happy that we were poor, but we know how to survive. More so, if we grew up with a lot of money and that was all taken from us, we wouldn't know how to survive. You know what I mean? So it's in a way, I feel like I'm super thankful I've had nothing before and I've gotten through it. You know, I had nothing when I came to the UK. I completely left all my art clientele and had to start from the bottom. You know, like I'm used to starting all over because the bottom was what it was a lot of my life.
I mean, I think that what you're saying is unfortunately true, right? Like, there's a certain level of compassion and empathy you can have, but until you've been in that situation, you can never really get it in the same way.
Hmm.
Like, you know, the struggle and what it takes, and have a different level of appreciation and understanding. But I felt that way the first time I was like seriously depressed. I turned 30. And it was the first time where I was like, whoa, like I'm not suicidal, but I understand the feeling of not getting how I could make it through another day like this because it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get it in a different way. So hopefully, you know, we don't have to go through that again. And I wish there was a way that we could understand all this stuff without having to go through it. But sometimes that is unfortunately the case. And I was going to switch and ask you, because you were just bringing up the UK. I'm like, why are you out there? Especially if you love your like little beach town that you grew up in anyway so much. But before we jump to that part, I just want to go back. First of all, Kay, sending you a lot of love. I'm sorry about your father. I meant to say that a long time ago.
Thank you.
You said he was murdered. Do you know, like, was it at the hands of?
He was just. It was just bad timing. My father went to get me and my brother diapers late at night, and his friend owned a shop, so he went there. And back then in the '90s, Oakland was one of the I think now they're like probably like fourth or sixth of the murder capital in the states, but I think they're up there in top three in the early '90s, and it was very dangerous. So someone just came, and it was just a robbery gone bad.
Damn.
Got shot.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Hmm.
Fuck. Okay. The reason I asked was not to know the details, but was more to know how, for anybody else that might be listening to this or watching us now live or listening to it later, you could have just gone down. We don't get to choose what happens to us in life.
Hmm.
We get to choose how we respond. You could have gone down a path where you were an angry kid for the rest of your
Oh
life.
man, totally, totally. Those options were always there. You know what I mean? But I skated. I was skating, and I was
How?
playing.
And for somebody
So
else who might be watching this angry because maybe they had some shit, like, how did you choose a different path? How do you see the joy in life still
well,
and the
I had
love?
I call him my big brother, but he was my cousin, but he was older, and he lived in the same housing projects as me. He was just always going down the bad route. He was going to jail. He was a drug dealer. He had a lot of nice things. He always had nice cars, the girls, everything. You know what I mean? But he was just around the people that I was scared of, and I don't want to be scared. You know what I mean? I don't want to be around people that I was scared of, and I don't want to be protected. I don't. If it meant that I'd be protected and I had to be around those people all day, it just wasn't worth it. You know what I mean? So I just always skate. Me and my friends would always skate. Um, Eventually, my mentor, which I
You
call him
mean like skateboard?
yeah, yeah. So I'd call my pops, the closest person I had to a father. I call him my pops. His name is JP. Um, he helped build the skate park in my town, and that skate park literally changed everyone's life in the hood. Like that was everybody's place to go, and was able to like get away from the hood and be able to do what they wanted, skate. You know what I mean? We met a lot of people. Like that's where you go and you start hanging out with white kids. You know what I mean? We was just in colored people like in these projects, and you go there and these white kids, and eventually you become friends with them, and then it's just like, oh, they have it's just like a mix now. You know what I mean? That was the place where things mixed. You know?
Whoa. Because
And
the only thing that mattered was skating.
exactly, skating. That was it. It was just, oh, you skate, and there was a lot of tension there. You know, people are fighting. I seen like a lot of people fighting. I seen somebody smoke weed for the first time out of a bong there. You know what I mean? Like it was it was crazy,
You
but
saw someone do that. Like
it was I loved it though. The skate park like and basketball, you know, like really got me towards that
Hey,
direction of finding my crew.
what is this about particular activities that all of a sudden it doesn't fucking matter who you are as long as you're good and you have a
Uh-huh.
heart and you want to put your blood, sweat, and tears on the line? Great.
Yeah,
Show up.
that's
All of
how
a
I
sudden
really believe
problems
in.
go away. Why?
That's how I really believe in after school programs and art. You know what I mean, and sports and things like that because that's what brings people together. And it's just like eventually you're on play sports, you're on the same team. You have to work with each other, and it doesn't matter what color that person is or if that person is gay or that person is queer or anything like that. It just matters that you guys have to win that game because you guys are on the same team. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I'm just like, why can we be that way on the field? But the second that we get into a boardroom meeting, no, fuck you.
Yeah, and it wasn't always perfect too when you were because like you have the best game or you skating all day with people and then you go back outside the skate park and it's back like that person is like still trying to like message you or something. You know what I mean?
Why?
So like
Why? How does that happen? Like, why does
I
it
think
go
because you're
away
out
and how
of
do we perpetuate it further? Because it's beautiful. Like, I want that more.
yeah, I think it's because when you're in that world it's just like you're just in that world together, everybody, you know what I mean? But when you have to go back into like home into being defensive and having to protect yourself, it's there's nothing that can stop you from protecting like your family or like your friends or having to like either you jump him or you get jumped, you know what I mean? One of those situations.
Oh, yeah. It is just so weird how the same two people in a skate park can be best friends. And the second they leave and they go back on their own block back home, they're
It's
worst
fucked.
enemies. It
Yeah,
just doesn't make any sense to me.
it doesn't. It's
I don't get
it's
that.
sad.
So, okay. Before we switch to kind of talking about the UK and more of like what you're currently up to and messaging, I'm just like curious in your time in the US and thinking about what we're all going through now. What do you think could make the biggest like what do you think that I mean, you've been an activist for this is not your first rodeo.
Mhm.
Um, and obviously, I mean, I hope people are really, this is not new, right? It's just getting published more. We're
Yeah.
just more aware of it. What's your message? Why do you do it? What do you want people to know?
Um well, it's I just feel like there's just as simple as it is, I just want some things to be equal, you know what I mean? I don't think things are ever going to be perfect, you know? And I think it's actually impossible for things to be perfect. I just want there to be equality. You know, like if there's going to be one person doing the same crime as another person, let them get the same sentence. You know what I mean? Don't let them get a different sentence because he's black. You know, there's a lot of people who are getting harsher sentences than white people who murder people. Someone get caught with a gun gets like life. A white person murders somebody and they get like, you know, like 5 years or something like that and get halftime for that and get out in 3 years. All I want is really what I'm fighting for is equality. I don't want everyone to just, I don't want the world to just completely switch. I want there to be growth. I want it to take time, you know? And at the end of the day, I just want people to be comfortable, safe, and just comfortable and safe is like one of the best feelings in the world. You know what I mean? Like you could be yourself and you don't have to worry about anybody else. You know, and if that means that people have to be in their own countries or people want to stay in their country and not get kicked out by another person, like let that be. If someone wants to go to another country, let that be as well. Because they're having a big problem here too, where they don't want people from other countries like Brexit and all of the other things. They don't want people coming into this country. Well, those people, same people, are the ones who built this country. You know, like let the people come in here, let the people like build the culture here. This whole country is built, their whole culture. Like I never knew how big of the Asian community was big in the UK. There's such a big influence here. There's such a big Caribbean influence here. I never knew that until I started coming to Europe a few years ago. And it's like my friend, he was telling me his grandpa came here in 48 or something from Jamaica. And he told me a few years ago that the government sent him a letter to try to extradite him back to Jamaica. And he came here in 48, but he already passed a few years ago. But they sent him a letter when he was already passed, trying to tell him to go back to Jamaica. Like it just doesn't make sense.
Oh my God, there are layers of fucked upness of that. Whoa.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like,
but that's the thing. When you remind, like, this is not an American issue. This is a global issue of us all. I mean, and you're from Eritrea, or your family is at least. Like,
yeah.
And there's still war going on. Like, so you say I want equality. Like, why is that so fucking hard?
Yeah.
What is it? What is it with, do you think that it really is human nature? Is it something within us to want to be better than?
Yeah, I mean, if you look back into days of Egyptian like mythology, there's been slaves then as well, and even before that. Well, I don't know. I'm like studied a lot of ufology, but you know, when the Anunnaki came here, they enslaved humans. You know what I mean? Like it's just like I think it's just always going to be a matter of power. Even with animals, there's the same thing, but it doesn't have to be as aggressive as colonization and genocide. You know what I mean? It doesn't even have to happen. And a lot of people say, I've seen somebody on Facebook say, well, shouldn't they be happy that they're in America now? Shouldn't they be happy that they're in the UK now? Like, if that didn't happen, this, like, first off, like, we'd be happy being in our own countries and we would come here voluntarily. You know, like, why can't we come here voluntarily? Why should we be happy that our ancestors went through this?
God, what a fucking ignorant statement. Also, oh my God. The whole like, I mean, at the end of the day, though, we are animals. I think it's like, I forget that too. And I'm definitely of the mindset of like, love all, but like Darwinism, survival of the fittest. I mean, are we ever really going to all be equal? And should we? I mean, there is something to be said about the food, like the chain. I mean, but can it just be based on purely like, are you the fittest? Like, are you really like, and not based on the opportunities that you're provided just because you happen to have white skin or black skin?
Yeah, well, if there was ever peace, it wouldn't last that long because someone would be like, "Oh, these people are cool. Well, I can just cause madness and I can control these people." You know what I mean? It's hard to say. So I just would really stick with being safe and comfortable. You know?
It's safe and comfortable. It's wild because I spent like 6 weeks in Nepal, a couple like 4 years
Oh,
ago.
nice.
And it is unbelievable the like love and joy that people have with nothing. And it really is. It's like as long as I have a roof over my head, I'm safe and comfortable and have a little bit of love of my family around me, like I'm good. And there's really not much more that we need in life other than being safe and having our basic needs met. Like that's it.
Yeah,
Um,
I learned that when I was in Eritrea. Like people there would have absolutely nothing, but they'd share their last with me, and I'd come back home and it'd be really hard because we'd have literally everything, and people would if they wouldn't give you anything, they wouldn't. If you didn't have your wallet on you or something, they wouldn't just buy it for you, even though you can give it to them when you guys go back to the house, or you know what I mean. It's just like there's a lot of walls in like the Western world.
well, there's this mentality of every man for themselves.
Hmm.
Every man for themselves, literally, not every person. And it's like, it just shouldn't be that way. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
that way at all. And the problem is like, unless you get out of America to see that, you don't know that it
Hmm.
really could exist or what that really looks or feels like. So, okay, I want to kind of switch gears a lot because you brought up what did you call it? Ufology? UFology? How do you say it properly?
Ufology, ufology.
Ufology.
Yeah,
I mean, this is what I think it is, right? Like
yeah,
UFO stuff.
yeah.
Okay. I love this topic and conversation. Personally, on a separate note, I'm like, is there any way I could tie it into this discussion about racism and race? I don't know. You tell me. I'm trying to like somehow tie it in. Does it? Have you thought about it?
No, I mean, um, not really, other than we're treated like we're aliens, like we're like completely different people. But no, alien ufology, how I got into that, I've just always been into like things that weren't normal. You know what I mean? In other places, and I really really believe that there's many other planets and many other beings. And
Oh,
when I
I
was
do.
really when I first started studying this, I found MUFON.com, and it's the Mutual UFO Network. And you could do a set of studies and a set of tests, and you can be a certified ufologist. So I did that, and I studied for a long time, and I did it, and I soon wanted to be a field investigator, which where they sort of give you like your own district. You have to go to Arizona, and you go through like a training. So if there was ever anything that happened in your area, you go and investigate it. But when it comes to this, like studying conspiracy theories and um, the Men in Black, when it comes to all these things, when you really get into it, reptilians and all that, it really like it's hard. It's hard to stick with it, and it's hard to live a normal life, and it's hard not to be mad, and it's hard to not to question everything. I mean, it sort of drives you mad. So I just had to completely separate myself from it in 2018. I just completely
Well,
stopped.
I get that. I mean, there is something to be said about ignorance is bliss. And it is once you like Pringles, once you pop, you can't stop.
Yeah,
And you really can get sucked down some crazy rabbit holes. But I mean, it, I mean, it really goes back to the whole cops need LSD thing and like love, self reflection, and dancing. I mean, when you get the fact that, like, okay, there are more grains of sand on this planet, excuse me, there are more galaxies in the universe than there are grains of sand on this planet.
mhm,
And that there could be all these other things, and really we're just a speck of fucking dust at the end of the day. Then you can
yeah,
laugh a little bit and relax and just enjoy and have fun and let people live their life.
yeah, totally. All we're just stardust. That's all. This whole planet and us, we're just stardust. And when I did my own research. I didn't just watch YouTube videos and listen to podcasts and just take those words. Like I try to connect things, try to connect different stories, try and connect different information about certain beings, and a lot of it is true. There's like real aliens that already walk among us. You know what I mean? There's already reptilians on this planet. There's peaceful aliens. There's so many peaceful alien races in our galaxy. So many of them, and those give me so much hope. And I love learning about them. Like those are my favorite ones. The Pleiadians come from the Pleiadian galaxy. The tall Nordics. Those are beautiful, beautiful aliens. You know what I mean? And they're here to help humanity. And a lot of people wonder why do they come here? Why do they give a fuck? Well, it's because we're in a galactic community. If Earth got
So
off.
okay, so what now then? What's the message? Like what the hell are we supposed to be doing? Why is this happening? Do you know, have you any
No, I
theory?
don't know why, but my whole theory is why aliens really care and give a fuck is because if we're in a galactic community, if my house got on fire, then it's capable of the house next door to us getting on fire as well. You know what I mean?
Meaning
So
Earth.
Earth, yeah. So if
Whoa,
something might
yeah, for
happen to Earth, it
sure.
can affect other planets as well. So I just feel like when it comes to aliens, people have all these theories, and there's evil ones, but they're just like us. There's good ones and there's bad ones.
Just beings.
Hmm.
Just beings. Okay. So we're talking about I don't think it's far out shit. I actually like think that this is some of the most like I mean, this is the kind of stuff I wish we could talk about all day,
These
every day.
conversations are needed for
Yeah, they
sure.
are. But I say out there because for people that like haven't studied this, okay? And I think I've studied not even close to what you've studied clearly. But people who've never studied anything about aliens, anything about the galaxy, anything about self-love and introspection and consciousness, and especially as it relates to race and racism, where would you recommend someone start right now?
Podcasts. First, listening to Jay Valentine podcast on on Apple Music. She has. I love listening to people talk about like facts and information, but I also really love hearing firsthand experiences with people who are interviewed on the podcast and tell their story. And there's a lot of things that you can connect yourself, a lot of things that people go through that are the same. And you're like, how's this one person from this country in a small town has the same exact experience from somebody in Iran? You know what I mean? Same exact experience, same exact timeline, everything. So go to Jay Valentine and on Apple Music for the podcast, and man, I feel so bad in not remembering this. The name is the UFO show, but I forgot who it was that ran it, and they just have interviews, and the interviews are the best way to get firsthand details. You know what I mean? Firsthand stories, because I don't really like just like listen to somebody talk for like a long time about it. Oh, and Jordan Maxwell. Please look up Jordan Maxwell. If I can send you guys a link that you guys can put in the show notes.
Yeah. Of course, we can
Yeah, it's
definitely
a
put
3-hour
links in.
interview with him. He's just sitting on the couch, but he's on this YouTube channel called Project Camelot, and I hope some people know about Project Camelot. But if you go on their YouTube, there's just tons of videos of whistleblowers, secret soldiers who were trained since they were kids, who fought secret wars all over the world, who are telling their story. Yeah, just go on Project Camelot, and that will blow your mind.
Okay.
Be careful, but be careful.
What about art? We haven't really we talked about, kind of the LSD and drugs as this gateway to kind of get to this self-reflection. We talked a little bit about aliens and other forms of life, but what about art? Which, by the way, like me personally, I think that art is anything can be art if you decide it and you add a little creativity to it. But what do you think? And like, where does art come in to all of this for you?
Well, I've been doing art all of my life in some form of way. Even skating as an art. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I really started in like 2006. I got into graffiti, and it was just unreal to just the graffiti taught me that more than anything, school or whatever teacher taught me that if you stick with one thing, you'll get good at it, and that's what graffiti taught me. After high school, I went to community college and I hated it. Like I didn't want to go to school and learn English and math. I just wanted to go to art school, and I couldn't afford art school, so I had to go to a community college where I had to take these courses, but have one art class. So I take all these classes just so I can go enjoy my art class, and I hated it. So in the summer of 2009, luckily one of the graffiti crews I was in, the leader of it, was working for the city of Oakland painting murals. Got me a job there. I was painting murals for the city of Oakland for the whole summer, and then
What a cool job.
yeah, it was amazing. And towards the end, I was just like really bummed out. Like this is about to end in like a month, and I have to go. I have to go to back to community college, which I hated. And then I went to jail for graffiti. I got arrested one night, went to jail, and I was sitting there. Only had to do like got caught on the Saturday night and Saturday or Sunday. And if you get arrested on the weekend, like you can't see the judge until Wednesday. So I was in there till Wednesday. So I
Isn't
was
it
just
crazy
like,
how you can get paid to do it by the city on the one hand and arrested for it on the other?
yeah, it was crazy. And while I was in there, I was like, I do not want to go. I do not want to go to college. I don't care. I don't want to do this. I want to go to art school. I can't. So I'm just going to do it myself. You know what I mean? So going back to the skate park days, the guy who built it, JP, he has an art studio called Political Gridlock. He's been making political art since '84. And as soon as I got out, I hit him up because I seen him at an art show like about earlier that summer, and he remembered me from when I was a kid. And I was like, "Can I come just like try and make some art?" And I came, and I've never left since. And he's the closest thing I have to a father. He's my mentor. Yeah, he turned me from a graffiti artist into like a painter and artist that I am today. He taught me how to screen print.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yes, amazing. And he's white. He's an older white man. He's 55 now.
I
You know what I mean?
love, I mean, if my stepdad were watching, he's an artist. I mean, it just is like such a beautiful way to express and bring people together and get understanding. I mean, political art is huge. I mean, in a
Yeah.
thousand ways, it can be used for good or bad propaganda, but damn. I mean, so is that what brought you to the UK? Was it your art? Was it hit? Like, what are you
No,
doing out
actually,
there?
so in 2016, I was living in the Sig Loft in Oakland. Um, my job, I hated it. I worked for a clothing warehouse, online clothing warehouse in near the San Francisco airport. So I'd take a like a 20-minute bus ride to downtown Oakland. From there, catch an hour-long train ride. Then I have to skate from the train station to my job. And then that was literally like the commute was like about 3 hours every day total. And I'd work there for 8 hours, then I'd skate back to the station, and then
Go to
go to
sleep and get up and
Oakland,
do
go
it
home, and
again.
then go and do all that. And I just hated my
Jesus.
job, and I'd just be partying on the weekends, and I just hated it. And at the end of the summer, my friend's clothing store, like a vintage shop, was closing, and then it was a block party, and then all of a sudden, people started shooting inside the gallery and on the street. And then at the end of the street, seeing a bunch of people like crowded around somebody, and it was somebody that I knew. He wasn't like a close friend of mine, but he was somebody I knew. You know, what I mean, for a few years. He was on the floor bleeding out and just died in front of all his friends. So at that point, it just messed me up. Like I was like, yo, I can't. I'm about to be 30. You know, what I mean, I think 26 at that time, and I was like, yo, I hate being out here. Like, I hate having to worry about this. One of my best friends. So, you know, when it's morning in California, it's nighttime here. So I'd be on the train ride every day, hating my job, watching one of my best friends I grew up with um, on Snapchat, and he'd be in Ibiza just partying while I'm on the way to the worst job that I hate. You know what I mean? And feeling all these emotions from what just happened with the dude I know who died. So I messaged him one day and I was like, yo, next year I'm going out there with or without you. So he came back a few months later in October. I moved out of my house, moved back to my mom's house. And I was like, I'm saving up. I'm coming there for the summer. Like, I need this. So it happened. Went to Ibiza, came there for, he was with me for 2 weeks, then he left. And I was just like, damn, like, he was my safe place. You know, I didn't really have anyone. And I called my ex at the time, and I thought she was gonna feel sympathy for me because I was like, I need to just go home. I don't know anybody here. Like, um, I'm used to being around people I know all my life. Um, she just told me to quit being a bitch. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're in your comfort zone most of your life. Now you're in another place. You need to go make friends. Ever since that conversation, I went out my way to talk to people and literally made the best of friends. And now I have a completely different life from that moment on. And I spent the past three years in Ibiza between June and October. And that's when I met my girlfriend the first summer there. We are just pretty much just friends. But she'd come that summer, and then 2018 summer she came, and then we're still like really good friends. And then this past summer she came, and we got really close, started dating, and then after the summer it was like, I don't want to go home, so I went home for like a few weeks, came out here, and now we have like a house in Nottingham.
Cute. I love it. And now you're in the UK.
Yeah,
I
man.
mean, as a solo traveler, I know that feeling of being alone and you're like,
Mhm.
fuck, and talk about being isolated and confronted with all of your own shit. I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, there was one thing I learned from traveling is like that statement, wherever you go, there you are,
Uh-huh.
is so true. But
And I know
also,
you had those calls with people, right? Where
oh
you're
my
like,
God, yeah, with Harry from Colombia. I remember calling him being like, I'm miserable. Anyway, um, when you're supposed to be living the dream, right? All
yeah,
of that too. But you've also had the experience of meeting complete strangers and
hmm
seeing the beauty in the world
yeah,
of how people can actually just show up and open up
yeah,
and love. So yeah, I mean, it is a mind fuck because on the one hand, you have those experiences where people are out of nowhere for no reason just going to come blow and blow up and shoot up a place for what. And then another experience where I'm like, oh, I just met you, but come to my house. I'm going to cook you dinner. You can sleep over. Like, how the fuck do we bridge the gap? Like, how do we?
Yeah, that was, I'm so sorry for the kid's family and what happened to him. It changed a lot of people's life. Like, that was supposed to happen. You know what I mean? Because if that didn't happen, a lot of people wouldn't have changed their lives. A lot of people changed after that. You know?
What did we say in the beginning multiple times throughout this conversation?
Happened
All
for a
happens as
reason.
it's supposed to. Like, it's doesn't mean that it's how we wanted it to happen,
Hmm.
even looking back, but it happened as it's supposed to. So, damn. I mean, okay. So, as somebody who has been, working, doing the work, advocacy work, doing the good fight, and trying to spread messages of love to people for a long time, what would you like to say to wrap this up on the record, and specific to the largest civil rights movement in history? Like, you can either maybe leave a message of action that you would like to see people take, or a message of how to communicate with each other, questions that people should be asking, what should we be thinking about. I'm giving you a lot of options, Cape. And you can go down a couple roads if you want, but it's your time. I want to listen to
Yeah,
you.
I'll keep it simple. Do your research. Um, Love, man. Like, love is like one of the biggest. Have compassion. Compassion is the single most important thing we can do as humans. Is just be a compassionate person. Like, feel for somebody, like help somebody out. Think about it like it could be like your family member or a friend. A lot of people are just too self-centered and think of like, well, it's not happening to me. And I find myself doing that as well. I feel like everyone does that. Like, there's a lot of things you do differently if it happened to your family member or if it happened to you. But sometimes you just need to do that extra much and make people uncomfortable. There's I have a lot of Palestinian friends, like, and I have a lot of friends who are Jewish as well. Sometimes like there's that there's that that line in the middle, like, well, I have to say both sides. I'm not gonna just say one side. There's a lot of things going on both sides. You know what I mean? And you have to put yourself in both situations and really think about it. And it's hard, and it's really hard because people could stop being friends with you. People could be like, fuck off, and just you could say everything that's perfectly right, but one thing you disagree on, people will just throw away everything that you ever stood for, you know. And it's really hard to disagree with your family, and it's really hard to let your friends down, but at the end of the day, just come from a place of love and honesty, and that's like the perfect way to get through it.
I think when you come from a place of love and pure good intentions like that, even if it's hard or uncomfortable, I don't feel like you're going to leave with enemies when
Hmm.
that is the tone and the message that you're coming from the whole time. Doesn't mean it's not going to be easy,
Hmm.
but
Yeah, totally. And it's hard, especially because there's a lot of people. Sometimes I just want to say fuck love. Like, I don't care. This is how I feel. I'm mad, and that's one of the worst things you could do is just react off of emotions, because that's how people end up in jail. That's how people, end up dead. That's how people end up losing a partner. And just like be careful. Like, take that step back.
yeah,
Take the
take
time
the
to think
minute to
about it.
breathe, think
Yeah,
it
take
through.
that. Maybe like take that day to respond to somebody, because like that one reaction, because like even people have, when that photo went viral, there was so many people who had positive things to say, but some people who had negative things to say, and I just had to like completely stop reading what people said. You know what I mean? Like, I had to just focus on the positive part about it, because it was so much more positive. But even that little bit of negativeness, like, spoiled spoiled me. Like, it really fucked me up. But I had to go back and just go to the people who was just coming at me for love. A lot of people who had the good things to say, and I just hold on to that. I think that's what everybody else should be doing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I think that if I could wrap up some of the messages is, first of all, we're not the only people here.
Yeah,
Beings. We're not the
for
only
real.
beings here. So treat it with respect and love and openness, I think.
Hmm.
Um, and shit might happen in your life. Remember the people in your life that support you. That's certainly what you did when you needed it the most. Get creative. Get creative. Ask questions and come at anything and everything that you do from a space of love. And by the way, feel, cry, get angry, feel the feels, but take a step back and don't take action necessarily based on those feelings. Feel them, get clear, then take action.
Yeah, exactly. When I always said when you're really happy, people don't tell you not to show your happiness. So if you're feeling like you need to cry, let that out as well.
I love it. You're beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much as well.
The last thing is I want to give you an opportunity to plug your podcast or your art page. Where can people find you? How can they support you?
My personal Instagram is Rebel Stillskin. It's REBELSTILSKIN.
We'll put links to everything too. So I appreciate you spelling it out, but we'll put links to everything so people don't have to remember.
And my art Instagram is Golden Pyramids TV. I'm actually going to post something in about 30 minutes, my latest painting. goldenpyramids.tv.com, my website. I'm actually used as a platform to host people if you ever want to tell a story, or if you have a dream or anything that's ever happened that you want to share your experience, psychedelic experiences, anything. I give an open platform. And goldenpyramidstv.bigcartel.com to get a copy of the LSD t-shirt.
Amazing. Love it. Harry and I want to buy one. We were talking about it. Okay. You're fabulous. We're going to wrap it up. I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the One World, Your Story podcast. If you enjoyed hearing this story and you wish to hear more, make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube, and of course, follow us on Instagram at One World, Your Story. From all of us here at the One World, Your Story podcast, we are sending you so much joy and love. Have a wonderful rest of your day.